What would you think if I told you that a woman's silence is one of the most potent and misunderstood forces in the psychic landscape of a man? It is not an absence of sound, but a presence of something else entirely, a mirror held up to the masculine ego, reflecting not her image, but his own. When a woman chooses to ignore a man, she is not merely withdrawing her attention, she is withdrawing a fundamental source of his psychic energy, a validation upon which his sense of self has, perhaps unconsciously, been built. This act, whether intentional or a simple byproduct of her own inner journey, creates a vacuum in the psychic space between them. And nature, especially human nature, abhors a vacuum. Into this void rushes the entirety of his unexamined self, his insecurities, his projections, his shadow. The thunder of her absence becomes the only thing he can hear, a roaring silence that questions the very foundation of his perceived reality and his place within it. His ego, the carefully constructed fortress of his identity, suddenly finds its ramparts unmanned and its gates thrown open to an invading force it cannot name, for that force is coming from within. The initial shock is one of profound disorientation. The ego, that fragile architect of identity, operates on a logic of cause and effect, of action and predictable reaction. It sends out a signal, a text, a call, a bid for connection, and expects a reply. This is the currency of the modern social contract. When that reply does not come, the circuit is broken. For the masculine ego, particularly one conditioned to see the world as a place to be navigated and controlled, this is not just a rejection, it is a system failure. The first response is often not introspection, but interrogation of the external world. He replays the last interaction, searching for the error in the code. Did he say the wrong thing? Did she misinterpret his tone? The ego desperately seeks a logical, external reason for the disruption because to look inward is to face a far more terrifying possibility that he is not the central protagonist in her story. That her world does not revolve around his, and that her silence is not about him at all. This cognitive dissonance creates an intense psychic pressure, a wound not to the body, but to his very concept of self, what psychologists call a narcissistic injury. This pressure must be released, and it is almost always released through the mechanism of projection. The mind, in its desperate attempt to restore order and preserve its own sense of virtue, casts out the uncomfortable feelings and attaches them to her. His own rising anxiety is reinterpreted as her being dramatic. His growing obsession is painted as her being a game player. His profound feeling of powerlessness is projected onto her as a form of cruel, calculated control. She becomes the canvas for his disowned inadequacies. This is the shadow in action. The parts of himself he cannot or will not acknowledge are suddenly visible to him, but only as they are worn by her. He is no longer dealing with a real woman, a sovereign individual with her own inner world, but with a construct of his own psyche, the cold enchantress, the punishing mother, the chaotic trickster. He may even lament to his friends, "I don't understand her," and he is right, but not in the way he thinks. He does not understand that he is arguing with a ghost, a specter born of his own fractured ego. The silence has forced him into a dialogue with his own unconscious, and he mistakes its voice for hers. Have you ever witnessed this transformation? The man who was once charming and attentive becomes agitated, accusatory, even aggressive in his pursuit of a response. His messages may escalate from questioning to demanding, from pleading to insulting. This is the ego in its death throes, thrashing against the perceived source of its demise. Each unanswered text is another blow, each missed call another piece of evidence in the case he is building against her. He believes he is fighting for her, for the connection, but on a deeper level, he is fighting for his own psychic survival. The validation he outsourced to her has been recalled, and the sudden deficit threatens to bankrupt his sense of self-worth. He is like a king whose subjects have suddenly stopped bowing. It is not the lack of deference that enrages him, but the terrifying implication behind it, that perhaps he is not a king at all. Her silence does not just wound him, it dethrones him from a kingdom he never realized was built on her compliance. This is a critical juncture. Will he attempt to burn her village for this perceived treason, or will he finally be forced to look at the man beneath the crown? This drama is an ancient one, played out in the archetypal theater of the collective unconscious. He may be operating from the archetype of the immature warrior, viewing connection as a conquest and her silence as a fortress to be sieged. Or perhaps he embodies the pure eternus, the eternal boy, who relies on the feminine, the mother, the lover, to mirror back his own greatness and soothe his insecurities. When the mirror turns away, or worse, becomes a void, the eternal boy is cast into a terrifying abyss. He is unmothered, unseen. Her withdrawal of attention forces him to confront the chasm within himself, a chasm he has been filling with her energy. Her silence strips him of his archetypal costume. He is no longer the conquering warrior or the adored boy prince. He is simply a man, alone with his own psychic material. The woman, in her quiet retreat, unwittingly takes on the archetypal energy of the Sphinx, posing a riddle he must solve not about her, but about himself. The riddle is simple: who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when you are not being affirmed? His entire being recoils from this question, for the ego's greatest fear is non-existence. And what of the woman in this psychic storm? More often than not, her silence is not a calculated strategy of power, but an act of profound self-preservation. It is the sound of her energy being recalled. Imagine her life force as a river. For a time, she may have diverted its flow to water his garden, to nourish a connection that she hoped would flourish. But if the soil is barren, if the garden yields only weeds of insecurity and demand, she must eventually redirect that river back to its source, herself. Her silence is the sound of the riverbed changing course. It is not an act of aggression, but an act of conservation. She is no longer willing to pour her life force into a vessel that cannot hold it, or worse, a vessel that demands more and more while offering nothing of substance in return. You must understand this: for a woman deeply connected to her own intuitive wisdom, her energy is her most precious currency. She cannot afford to spend it on psychic landscapes that deplete her. Her ignoring him is not a void, but a reclaiming. She is plugging the leaks in her own energetic field. This reclamation is a critical step in the process of individuation, the Jungian concept of becoming a whole, integrated self. For a woman to individuate, she must disentangle her identity from the projections of others, particularly the masculine. She must learn to distinguish between the voice of her own soul, her authentic self, and the echoes of societal expectation or a man's desire. Often, this requires a period of retreat, of symbolic silence. By not responding, she is creating a sacred container for her own thoughts, her own feelings. She is refusing to allow her inner world to be dictated by his external demands. She is choosing the integrity of her own peace over the frantic noise of his ego. For the man, this feels like a punishment. For the woman, it is a sanctuary. It is her return to the inner temple, where her worth is not a subject for debate or a commodity to be earned through performance. It is an inherent, unshakable truth. Her silence is the boundary wall around this sacred space. The man, caught in the tempest of his ego's reaction, cannot perceive this. He sees her boundary as a wall built to keep him out, failing to realize it is a wall built to keep her in. His ego interprets her self-preservation as a personal attack. This is where the wisdom of the Stoics offers a lifeline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Her silence is the impediment. For the man, it can become the way forward, if he so chooses. He can continue to rage against the wall, exhausting himself and revealing the depths of his own immaturity. Or, he can pause and ask a different set of questions. Not, why is she doing this to me, but, what is this feeling within me? Why does her silence have such power over my own inner state? This shift in perspective is monumental. It is the beginning of taking radical responsibility for his own emotional experience. It is the first step away from the boy who blames the world for his pain, and toward the man who uses his pain as a tool for self-discovery. This path requires him to turn his gaze away from her and into the shadowed landscape of his own psyche. Here, he will find the unhealed wounds, the fragile sense of self-worth that he has been asking her to carry for him. He will find the anima, his own inner feminine, which he has not integrated but has instead projected onto her. He expected her to be his muse, his emotional caretaker, his source of inspiration and comfort, all the roles of the unintegrated anima. When she refused to play the part, the entire psychic structure collapsed. Her silence forces him into a confrontation with his own inner feminine. He must learn to source his own comfort, to validate his own feelings, to cultivate his own empathy and intuition. This is the great work of male individuation, to withdraw the projection of the anima from the women in his life and to birth her within himself. It is a terrifying and painful process, but it is the only path to true psychological maturity and wholeness. He must learn to mother himself. The woman's silence, then, becomes an unintentional and often thankless act of spiritual midwifery. She, by focusing on her own journey, creates the necessary conditions for his potential rebirth. She is the catalyst, not the cause. Her role is simply to hold her own frame, to maintain her own peace. She does not owe him a rescue from the depths of his own psyche. In fact, to engage with him while he is in the thralls of his egoic projection would be a disservice to both of them. It would reinforce his belief that she is responsible for his emotional state, and it would pull her back into a dynamic that drains her life force. Your refusal to engage his frantic energy is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is a powerful statement that you are not the caretaker of his unhealed trauma. You are not the regulator for his emotional dysregulation. You are sovereign over your own inner kingdom, and its gates will not be open to chaos. This is where the principles of Stoic philosophy become profoundly empowering for the woman. Epictetus taught that the chief task in life is to separate things into two categories: externals we cannot control, and the choices we make about how we use those externals. You cannot control his reaction. You cannot control his ego's desperate flailing. You cannot control the narrative he will spin to his friends or the names he will call you in the privacy of his own mind. To even attempt to manage his internal experience is a fool's errand, a path that leads directly to exhaustion and resentment. Your power, your peace, lies in focusing solely on what you can control, your own response. Your choices. Your boundaries. Your inner state. His emotional storm is his to navigate. Your responsibility is to your own vessel, ensuring it remains steadfast and on course, regardless of the tempests that rage outside of it. Think of your attention as a finite and sacred resource, like a single candle flame in a vast, dark room. Where you place that flame determines what you see and what you give life to. When you direct it toward his drama, you illuminate his chaos and feed it with the oxygen of your focus. It grows larger, more demanding, casting frightening shadows on the walls of your own mind. But when you withdraw that flame, when you bring it back to illuminate your own path, your own book, your own heart, his drama is plunged back into the darkness from which it came. It may still exist, but it is no longer your reality. You are choosing what to make real. This is not passive ignorance, it is an active and powerful choice of focus. You are divesting from his reality and investing fully in your own. This is the ultimate act of self-worth, to declare that your own inner world is more important, more real, and more deserving of your light than the chaos of another's unexamined ego. The man will perceive this energetic divestment as a profound loss. He will feel the cold where once there was warmth. The ego will mourn the loss of its supply, the validation it fed upon. But this loss is what is necessary for his potential growth. In nature, a forest fire, while destructive, clears away the dead underbrush and allows for new, healthier growth to emerge from the ashes. A woman's silence can be like that fire. It is a painful, ego-scorching event that clears away the delusions of control and the projections of immaturity. It creates a space, a barren ground where something more authentic can potentially grow. Whether he seizes this opportunity is entirely up to him. He can choose to remain in the ashes of his shattered ego, blaming the fire for his loss. Or, he can begin the difficult work of planting new seeds in the fertile ground of his newfound humility, seeds of self-awareness, personal responsibility, and genuine inner strength. The woman who understands this dynamic operates from a place of profound inner security. She does not wield her silence as a weapon, for she has no war to win. She simply resides in her own truth, and her truth requires peace. She is not playing hard to get, she is being hard to access for those who are not in alignment with her own vibrational state. There is a critical difference. One is a tactic, an outward-facing strategy designed to elicit a specific response. The other is a state of being, an inward-facing reality that is unconcerned with the response of others. You are not creating a vacuum to pull him in. You are inhabiting a plenitude that has no room for his psychic noise. This distinction is everything. A tactic can be figured out and countered. A state of being is immutable. It is a mountain that does not concern itself with the opinions of the wind and the rain. It simply is. This state of being is cultivated through dedicated inner work. Through shadow work, where you embrace and integrate the parts of yourself you have been taught to disown, your anger, your ambition, your wildness. Through the study of philosophy and psychology, which provides the maps to navigate your own inner terrain. Through practices like meditation and solitude, which quiet the external world and allow you to hear the subtle, wise voice of your own intuition. This is the work of building your own internal throne. When you are secure in your own sovereignty, you no longer seek a king to validate your queendom. You recognize that you are the queen, the throne, and the entire kingdom, all in one. Your validation is an inside job. Any external validation is merely a pleasant, but unnecessary, bonus. A man's attention is no longer a prize to be won, but simply data to be observed. Does his energy add to your peace, or does it subtract from it? The answer to that question becomes your only guide. Consider the energy he projects when he is being ignored. It is frantic, needy, grasping. It is the energy of a hungry ghost, seeking to consume her attention to fill its own emptiness. A woman who has done her inner work can feel this energy from a great distance. It is dissonant, out of tune with the harmony of her own inner world. To engage with it would be to invite discord into her sanctuary. So she doesn't. Her silence is a vibrational boundary. It is her saying, non-verbally, the price of admission to my world is peace, and you do not currently have the currency to enter. This is not an arrogant posture. It is a deeply self-honoring one. It is the recognition that she is the sole gatekeeper of her own nervous system, and she will not allow it to be hijacked by the dysregulation of another. She is practicing a form of energetic hygiene, refusing to be contaminated by the psychic mud he is flinging in his distress. For the man who is willing to grow, the pain of this rejection can eventually morph into a grudging respect, and then, perhaps, into genuine inspiration. He may one day realize that she was not rejecting him, but rejecting a way of being that he himself needed to shed. She was holding a standard for connection that he was not yet able to meet. Her refusal to lower her standard becomes the impetus for him to raise his own. He learns that connection is not something to be demanded or extracted, but something to be earned through the cultivation of his own character, his own inner stability. He learns that the most attractive quality a man can possess is not wealth or status, but a deep, unshakable inner peace, a sovereignty that mirrors her own. When he finally reaches this state, he will no longer fear a woman's silence. He will understand it. He will see it not as an absence, but as a space of sacred potential. But you, as the woman on this journey, must release any attachment to his outcome. His transformation is not your project. His individuation is not your responsibility. To hope for his growth, to wait for him to get it, is to once again tether your own emotional state to his. It is a subtle but powerful way of giving your power away. Your work is to become so deeply rooted in your own self-worth, so absorbed in the beauty and purpose of your own life, that his journey becomes an irrelevant footnote in your epic tale. You wish him well, from a distance, and you turn your face back toward your own son. This is the ultimate detachment, a loving indifference that is the hallmark of the truly empowered feminine. You are not cold, you are free. You are not uncaring, you are self-caring, which is the prerequisite for any healthy connection. The ego death he experiences in the face of your silence is a necessary crucifixion for his own potential resurrection. He must be separated from his false, externally validated self in order to find his true, internally sourced self. Your role in this divine drama is not to be his savior. You are simply the truth that exposes the lie. The lie is that he needs you to feel whole. The truth is that he needs himself. Your silence is the crucible in which he is given the opportunity to burn away the dross and discover the gold within. But whether he steps into the fire or runs from it is a choice only he can make. You must be at peace with either outcome. Your journey does not depend on the success of his. Your path is your own, and it is paved with the courage to choose your own peace over anyone else's comfort, including his. This is the point where many women falter. The conditioning to be the nurturer, the helper, the emotional caretaker runs deep in the collective female psyche. You may feel a pang of guilt. You may hear a voice, a ghost of societal expectation, whispering that you are being mean or unfair. This is your own shadow work to do. You must confront this inner people-pleaser, this martyr archetype who believes her value lies in her ability to sacrifice her own needs for the sake of others. You must have a conversation with this part of yourself and gently, but firmly, release her from her duty. You must teach her that your primary duty is to the divine spark within you, and that to allow that spark to be diminished by the demands of an external ego is the greatest disservice you can do to yourself and to the world. When you master this inner alignment, your very presence becomes a powerful filter. Men who are operating from a place of ego, insecurity, and projection will be intensely uncomfortable around you. Your centeredness highlights their lack of it. Your peace agitates their inner chaos. They will either be forced to level up, to begin their own inner work to meet you at your energetic altitude, or they will be repelled by it. They will call you intimidating, arrogant, or cold, because your self-possession is a mirror to their own self-abandonment. And that is perfectly fine. Let them be repelled. You are not here to be a comfortable resting place for unexamined egos. You are here to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses do not run all over the island looking for boats to save, they just stand there, shining. Your silence, your boundaries, your unwavering commitment to your own inner truth, this is your light. Eventually, the man's ego exhausts itself. The rage subsides into sorrow, the sorrow into a quiet emptiness. It is in this emptiness that a new kind of perception becomes possible. The noise of his own need has deafened him, but in the quiet aftermath, he may finally be able to hear something else. He may begin to understand that her silence was not a weapon against him, but a sanctuary for her. He might start to see that true strength is not the power to demand attention, but the power to command one's own. This is a profound shift from a worldview based on extraction to one based on cultivation. He stops asking, "What can I get from her?" and starts asking, "What can I build within myself?" This is the gift hidden within the wound, the medicine inside the poison of rejection. Her ignoring him, an act he once saw as the cause of his greatest pain, becomes the catalyst for his most significant growth. Do you see the sacred alchemy at play? Your commitment to your own individuation creates a ripple effect in the collective unconscious. By refusing to participate in dysfunctional, ego-based dynamics, you are raising the standard for what is acceptable in relationships. You are voting, with your energy and your attention, for a new paradigm, one based on mutual respect, inner sovereignty, and authentic connection. You are no longer a pawn in the ego games of the masculine, but a queen in the chess match of your own life, moving with intention, purpose, and grace. Your power is not in what you say or do to him, but in what you refuse to say, what you refuse to do. It is the power of the sacred no, the holy boundary, the divine silence. You are teaching the world how you are to be treated by the way you treat yourself. This is the ultimate reframing of power. The immature ego believes power is control over others. The mature soul knows that true power is control over oneself. It is the mastery of one's own inner state, as the Stoics championed. When you are the master of your own domain, you are no longer threatened by the actions or inactions of others. A man's attention is a welcome guest if it behaves with respect, but your house remains whole and beautiful whether it visits or not. His ignoring you ceases to be a significant event. It is merely a change in the weather, and you are not the weather. You are the mountain, rooted deep in the earth of your own being, your peak touching the sky of your own potential. You are immovable, serene, and complete, with or without a witness. The journey culminates in a state of peaceful detachment. The emotionally charged question of "Why is he ignoring me?" or the power play of "I will ignore him back" are revealed to be traps of the ego. You transcend the entire game. Your focus is so intensely and joyfully placed upon your own life, your purpose, your creativity, your growth, your peace, that the question of his attention becomes utterly irrelevant. You are not ignoring him, you are simply occupied with your own becoming. You are in a state of divine flow, so immersed in the act of creating your own beautiful reality that the noise from the cheap seats can no longer reach you. You have moved from the stage, where you were an actress in his play, to the throne room of your own inner world, where you are the sole and rightful sovereign. This is the rebirth. The woman who was once tormented by the silence of a man is gone. In her place stands a woman who is nourished by her own. She has found that solitude is not loneliness, but a gateway to the self. She has discovered that her own validation is the only currency with any real value. The frantic energy of the chase, the desperate need for external approval, has been replaced by a profound and unshakable inner calm. She moves through the world not with the anxious energy of someone seeking to be chosen, but with the quiet confidence of the one who does the choosing. Her heart is open, but her gates are guarded by wisdom. She has learned that the greatest love affair of her life is the one she cultivates with her own soul. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.